Hey, this is not Misery Loves Company. This is Witchcraft Loves Misery, a kind of rare stars align event where misery tourism meets witchcraft mag. And so so people have been asking me since we started Misery Loves Company back in the midst of the pandemic in 2020, why is this always only at an American friendly time? Like, why is this kind of arranged to be perfect for people in the east or west coast of the US, but really shitty for people in Europe? And I always say, well, I don't know, I'm from the US. Most of our crew is from the US. I'm sorry, maybe someday we'll do one that's at a more European friendly time. And I put it off and I put it off. And finally, Sabrina Small kind of reached out to me a few weeks ago and asked if we could do maybe a joint event with Witchcraft Mag that would be at a more Euro-friendly time. So with that in mind, I'm going to just turn the mic over to Sabrina really quickly here, and she can talk about her kind of vision for this event, and then we'll get into the readings.
Okay. Yeah, well, thanks everybody for being here. Happy Friday the 13th. And I mean, this is very selfish. I can honestly say that I did this one time when a story that I wrote came out in Expat and I wanted to read it for Misery Loves Company. And like I fucked up the time and I woke up at like 3 a.m. and like dragged my ass in to read. And I was so out of it that whoever was reading before me read with a New York accent, and then I read with a New York accent, even though I don't have a New York, like it was just so awful. And so then I thought it would be nice to do this at a time where I could get to know everyone, because yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm a part of the scene somewhat on Twitter, but I think it's really nice to hear people read. And yeah, I want to be a part of it all. And I also think it's important to make it more inclusive for people that are maybe not in the US. And also, you know, just like mix it up a little. So like Elle is sort of Scottish now because she lives in Scotland and she knows a bunch of people, and we just got everyone together and decided to try this out. And if it goes well, I'd love to do this once a month, like hijack one Misery Loves Company and turn it into a Witchcraft Loves Misery. That's the dream.
Well, let's see how it goes, right? And thank you, Sabrina. And also, Elle, I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot here if you weren't expecting to say anything, but I do want to give you a chance if you want to say anything about Witchcraft Mag's participation or anything. I'll give you the floor now.
Yeah, I just feel like I feel like in the more transgressive lit world, I want magazines to work together more rather than have these weird little silos and pockets, where I think co-creating is really cool. And I love Misery Loves Company. And like I said, like I always want to participate, but the time is never ideal. So I just figured, why not? Why don't we just try this? But for me, it's like with like hosting and organizing stuff, I'm at this point in my life where like I just can't functionally do a lot of that. Like I just have very low energy, like very limited energy and that kind of thing. So I'm like happy to be a part of this as a participant and like reach out to people and like help provide a platform for people to share their work however we can. So and I also am like, I'm like not a super fan of hosting things because I get like shy about it, but I'm just still really happy to like bring people together. Like that's what I want, is just for people to come together and read really good lit. So that's part of why Witchcraft is participating in this.
Well, that's awesome, Elle. And I really, first of all, I get what you're saying because I've been doing this for 2 fucking years and I get the butterflies every time too. It can be nerve-wracking to be in the hosting seat, but I really appreciate you coordinating with Sabrina and me on this, because I really like you. I want to see this community grow, not retract. I think too fucking often you get these weird little like feuds and shit between magazines and between publications and between presses and between authors. And my heart breaks every time I see that on the Twitter timeline. And anything that can like make this community bigger, more welcoming, friendlier. I mean, my position has always been, just because we publish transgressive shit, just because maybe like there's something, just because the work is alienating or off-putting doesn't mean that like community should be, right? And so it's really awesome to have this opportunity to collaborate with both of you and do this thing. And so let's get fucking started here. Let's get started. Ollie Court. Sorry, Ollie. Ollie Court is up first. Are you with us, Ollie?
Hey, yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Ollie. And so
Yeah.
I am going to be dropping links to the pieces that the authors will be reading throughout the night if there's a link available. So you're going to be reading a story published in 3 a.m. magazine. Is that correct?
That's right, yeah, 3 a.m. Like I've made a couple of like little changes to it since it got published in full George Lucas style. Like very, very minor, but yeah, I feel like you're reading along and I say something different, that is why, basically.
I'm going to be watching for a Greedo shot first moment.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see if I've absolutely butchered it. Who knows? But yeah, this is called Every Time I Think of You. Melt my eyes, see your future has been in my ears for every step of my walk through the dead streets this week. Back and forth from a brand new house that feels so empty, minus the cat. When I arrive, Mariposa asks me everything she wants to know. I do the same. I leave when we run out of questions for each other, so I make sure to always bring answers with me. Saturday night, right at the door, as I took out my earphones, she asked me what I'd been listening to. I told her that on the way over the bar, cold world, we don't even got a North Face, hit right as I walked past all 6'3" of the girl I'm in love with, rocking her own North Face in the snow drifts. I told her about how it had to mean something. Mariposa called me a cliche and asked me how that could be. So I told her everything. There's this YouTube video, I said, a highlight reel tribute to the wrestler Katsuyori Shibata, set to Denzel Curry, Cosmic. The video runs through classic Shibata matches and moments, leading up to his challenge for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship against the Golden Boy, the ace of his generation, Kazuchika Okada. This is where I first encountered Denzel, with a track from his previous album, Unlocked, and now his new one, Melt My Eyes, drops just a week before the 5-year anniversary of Okada versus Shibata. It can't all just mean nothing. Mariposa, her palms perched on her chin and her feet up in the air, wants to know more. Shibata was an underdog, a scrapper, a black sheep. Years ago, he was part of a promised golden generation of New Japan Pro Wrestling, one of 3 young superstars who would lead the company back to the top. But Shibata left New Japan Pro Wrestling to pursue an MMA career, an unsuccessful foray which led him back in the end to wrestling and New Japan. He would not begin at the pinnacle, though. He had to prove himself again, go out every night, pushing the form to its very limit, to win back his peers, his company. My next question for Mariposa was obvious. Is it worth destroying a body to create something beautiful? She asked me if it was healthy to narrativize my life like this, whether I was just lionizing something gruesome. We agreed to come to no conclusion. She rolled her head over onto my stomach and asked me to keep going. I talked her through the whole history, from the 4 pillars to Misawa's death and the fall of Noah, the rise of New Japan, the Okada-Tanahashi series that ignited my passion for it all. Mariposa asked me so many questions. It's been a long time since anyone has done that. We lay there together, ignoring the sunset, with Craig Charles spinning P-Funk at low volume on the side table, and Mariposa listening to all my useless knowledge. This was all surely exactly what I wanted my life to be like. My dream of early Brighton spring come true. But we both felt it, how it wasn't right. And I knew I could explain to her why, even if it meant going back 5 years, to the headbutt and to Nell. April 9th, 2017, Sakura Genesis. Kazuchika Okada versus Katsuyori Shibata, the culmination of a 5-year climb back to the top. Shibata's first title match since his return. He wrestled this match as he fought every other on the journey, putting his body on the line, a human torpedo firing headlong into pain. And the pain tells the story. If you don't feel it, nothing you do will resonate. I started tearing up while Mariposa cuddled up to me, her head on my shoulder, her hand against my chest. It wasn't right. Shibata withstood everything, but in the end, he couldn't withstand himself. That headbutt, that visual, with a single stream of blood trickling down between his nose and cheek, his eyes gazing up, the son of God kneeling before the Oracle of Siwa, punished for going just one step too far. Was it worth it? The whole match is truly a beautiful thing. It's the pinnacle of the Okada era New Japan style. It's the pinnacle of everything. It's all been downhill since. That morning, April 9th, 2017, I banged my hand on the mattress and yelled in delight. And Nell not only put up with it, she wanted to be a part of it. She wanted to see me happy. That's the last thing she said to me, boarding the train out of Cathay. And now here was Mariposa. We wanted to know everything about each other, hobbies, ambitions, where we grew up and how we felt about it all, why we are the way we are. It should have felt like a beacon in the darkness, but Mariposa wasn't her. She isn't her. Mariposa wants something else, and so do I. I told Mariposa that Shibata left every part of himself in that match. He carried his body out of Sumo Hall and broke down the moment he got backstage. I told her about the dehydration, the subdural hematoma, the paralysis on his right side of his body. You can see it as he leaves the arena. You can see his body falter. Nothing has topped it since. My life has never been better than it was then, that morning, 5 years ago, when all the fear and dread meant nothing compared to the magic conjured by Shibata and Okada. When Nell's tenderness was so close to me, before it all drifted away, off into real life. I told Mariposa everything, and she did the same. We only spoke when the other asked a question. That should have been so beautiful. That should have been all I could ever want. But every time I think about what could have been, I stop asking questions, and I'm back out in the cold, walking through storms and snowdrifts, back to a truly lonely place. The only place where I don't feel scared of the future, where I can lie awake in the dark and picture a world where that headbutt, for all its terrible beauty, never happened. A world where I never have to fall out of love. Maybe that's a world that doesn't exist. I'm just about facing up to that. Now I've got to answer to the cosmic.
Ollie, that was beautiful. I love what you do in this piece because I love the way that you play with causality, right? Like, because it's very similar to the way like we intuit causality, right? Like this idea that like the media you watch, like what you're seeing on TV, what you're experiencing out there in the world could somehow affect like the progression of your life, you know? And you do this wonderful, like, the atmosphere of this piece and the way that you like move in and out of moments in time and the way that you define moments in time just as much by like who you're with in that moment, what you're watching in that moment, like just the atmosphere of this place and the, oh my God, just like the gorgeous bittersweetness of it all. This is a really great fucking piece, Ollie, and thank you for sharing it.
Thank you, William. Yeah, thanks for letting me read it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if anyone else, if Sabrina or anyone wants to jump in before we move on here. Or also, once again, if you have a friend or something in the waiting room, just put their name in the chat because I am trying to keep the trolls out. And I do apologize to Keko and Ryan who were in the waiting room for a little bit. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Ollie. Sabrina, I think you're introducing the
Yeah,
next
I
author.
will. Okay, so I know the next reader is Kaisa, and I know a little tiny bit about you that you run Feral Dove, but I'm not 100% sure what you're going to read. So that's my introduction.
Yeah, I thought I would read from this book, this little pink book with a fake French name, Voidus, which was published by Feral Dove last year. And I think Evan, who runs Feral Dove, is also on the call. So I wanted to say thank you to him for publishing it because it was my debut book. So, I'm very happy that I was able to publish it. So yeah, I'm just going to read a few excerpts, like a couple of sort of short story excerpts and some poems from this book. Starting with an excerpt from a short story called My Love is of My Body, an Unholy Seep. Truth be told, I have abandoned all faith in natural virtue. Before I found my mistress, I followed the will of a man who believed in the sanctity of female suffering. In my desire to be good, I wore the straitjacket of victimhood, resigning myself to violation after violation. One day, I heard he had hurt a dear friend of mine. I voiced my distress. Her anguish was my anguish. Vampirically stealing our pain for himself, he said that my accusations gravely offended him. He demanded I kneel down before him and apologize. Incandescent with rage, I shot him through the heart. While his carcass was still ebbing with warmth, I dug my fingers deep into the hole in his chest, twisting them into the tissue of his heart. It yielded under my touch, weak as expected. I smeared the remains of his pathetic heart on my face and swore I would never again submit to anyone who expected it on the basis of my sex. Mistress understands the depth of my rage. My pistol lies in the bottom of my suitcase, silent. I have nearly finished cleaning the tub when she enters the bathroom, a beaming smile on her face. Inspiration has struck me, she says, and extends her hand. I peel off the disposable gloves and let her walk me downstairs. In the middle of the conservatory, Mistress has set out a single chair and a small table. A transparent container of needles sits atop the table, drawing my eye. I will go get some supplies, Mistress says. I want you undressed and waiting for me in that chair by the time I'm back. I untie my apron and take off my dress, shivering in anticipation. By the time she enters the room with a gleaming white sharp box, I am sitting prim and nude in the chair, immobile as though I were already restrained. Straighten your back, Mistress says while she binds my wrists to the chair with a leather belt. Show respect for me with your posture. Yes, Mistress. Now, are you sure you want to give me this gift? Yes, Mistress, I want it so much. When my vision goes dim, it's not blood loss, but an exaltation. I have lost count of the needles that have been stuck in my flesh. There may be 40 or 50 of them. The devil is in the details, and I welcome her. You will make a pretty picture like that, Mistress says. I gaze at a long needle inserted horizontally above my navel. Let me get my camera. Don't fool around and stab yourself while I'm gone. I remain transfixed by the needle as Mistress goes and comes, immortalizing my trance. I can barely remember what my face looks like. It does not matter now that my flesh has become a vessel for something I cannot quite pronounce. Slowly, Mistress starts pulling out the needles in my thighs, blood blooming in their wake. The smell of it makes me feel close to the earth, full of life. A thin wood-handled brush dangles in her fingers. She dips its bristles into the expanding pool of red on my left thigh, transferring my life force between the containers of my body and her canvas. It is angled away from me so I cannot see the words she is writing. It might just as well be a love poem about me or about another girl in her past, an ode to the snowdrops in the yard, an oath of revenge. The lack of knowledge doesn't bother me in the slightest. She could use me up, consume me like this, for whatever purpose she deems fit. I trust her with my life, my death, everything. My love is of my body, and the blood rising to my surface must be permeated by it. Most of the needles have been taken out now, the canvas of my skin filled with color. Mistress's hands are stained with the deep red of me too, and I cannot stop wondering if the love in my DNA is seeping through her epidermis. Sometimes it feels like a disease, wanting to give myself to her so completely. What if I am transmitting it? What if those bloody palms hold biohazard psalms? And what about all the fury coursing in my veins? If I make my mistress more wrathful, I will gladly suffer the consequences, but I don't want her to suffer from love. What are you thinking of? Mistress asks. Is my love contagious? Is it dangerous? Instead, I say, oh, silly things, mistress. I feel so blissful. You've been so good to me, Marlene, she says. So beautiful. You deserve a world of pain after this. The end. And I'm gonna read a couple of poems as well. Not any like long stuff, but this one is called What I Must Do. Today I woke and stepped into the solar X-ray. There is nothing broken inside you, it said. You are luminous. The warmth was too much to take. Signs of spring, flowers, bruises, distracted fingers weaving threads of mottled lilac memories. I thought I must be done with the vampires because I would let them suck me dry, use me right up, extinguish me. I would say thank you, or most likely negate myself into a thing shivering, silent, unfeeling. I would lose my words, yet I must not. My friends tell me, sometimes I tell me, I must give to those who take in communion my love, a spring, drink from it, spit in my mouth, receive with grace. I shall leave this body, not in little death, but a little rebirth. The next one is called The Rites of Spring. Blooming bells stole for me, grey sky pushes down, brilliant chaos petals resisting, breathing in violent blossom, fill me with spring, veil of long days outside glistening, chained to skin, thorns break me, exploding color, without the signs I am seeing, in dark rooms, gazes give birth to true memories, behind glass walls, labyrinths of translucency, never ever find the soul, after all the function of ink is to stain things, a mess, a mass of true blue darkness, a static of incoherence, in words, I am not alive and neither are you. I have no need for a man inside the leather jacket. The scent suffices, the warmth of skin on skin, creaking, folds of flesh, a long dead thing, comforting. This animal that never had a name, never slept beside its mother, holding me so tight, I smell like love. And I'm gonna read one more, I think, called Uniform of Affection. So fulfilling to hold a fuchsia cloud of feathers, white lace apron tight against my waist, dusting every corner of the dream house. I say, please, miss, can this be homemaking? Shock collar on my thigh sings, love is tough, here, you can earn it. Miss, she looks at me and smiles. All the best angels are monstrous. Somewhere a family sits down for a meal, no flowers at the table, just soft steam rising from chipped stoneware, a stained jug of water being lifted, an image I fetishize. Sometimes I'm invited to the tableau. All words are foreign on my tongue, except thank you. Thank you. Surely you see I don't belong here. I will swallow my fill. I will feel hollow again, bake a fool's gold crust for the mincemeat of my heart, crumbs for a grotesque Gretel chasing the glow of a hearth. That's it from me. Thank you very much for listening.
Those were fucking wonderful. Thank you for sharing them. I love that. First of all, that first piece has incredible, delicate psychological insight, right? When people write about masochism, usually there's this real desire to lean into the ugliness of it, right? And what you get at in that first piece is like, you don't turn a blind eye to like the ugliness of this thing, right? But you also don't, so it's not purely romanticized, but you also don't just lean into the ugliness and turn it into like exploitation. Instead, you have a really astute understanding of the psychological complexity of that experience and the beauty that's hidden within like the pain and the agony and the you know, the self-effacement of it. And the poems that you read afterward have that same like beautiful psychological clarity. The leather jacket poem, like I have no need of a man within this leather jacket. That line communicates so much, so clearly and so perfectly. Like you understand intuitively what you mean, and then the like horror of like imagining you know essentially the sacrifice of that animal that led it's this is beautiful stuff. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really wonderful to hear. I've actually never done a Zoom reading before, so I was quite nervous, but yeah, I'm really glad I did this. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
That was incredible. I mean, I also think it's so Yeah, the first reader and now you, like this kind of ode to blood, as both like a means to express beauty and to express like relief. I just really loved that side of it.
Yeah, thank you so much for reading. Genevieve Jagger is up next. And I see somebody has pasted a bio in here, so I hope I don't get this wrong. But Genevieve, you're an editor at Witchcraft Magazine, and you're reading an unpublished piece? Maybe
Yes.
a work in progress piece? Awesome. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. It's nice that you're all up before my bedtime. I'm reading a piece. Working title is Anxious. I'm just gonna go for it. She does the yoga. Cat, cow, lizard, up dog, down dog, pigeon. She draws a kidney bean on her wrist so that she will remember to breathe into her belly, not her chest. She is a long, forgotten cascade of a mountain, and her thoughts are stratocumulus clouds. She eats her greens, even the gross ones, courgettes, spinach, and sprouts. She blends them all together with a fat pinch of cayenne pepper and holds her nose as she gulps the frothy liquid down. She gives up smoking weed, even though she loves smoking weed, because she cares about her lungs, her larynx, her stained fingertips, her teeth, her mind. She pours the sour milk down the drain before it can turn to curds and whey, causing her to avoid her own fridge. She gets 8.5 hours of sleep, no more, no less. And when she wakes up, she immediately makes her bed. She takes iron tablets to prevent anemia and tracks her menstrual symptoms in a little red book. She meditates in fits and starts, and sometimes it soothes her, but mostly it just allows her to feel that she's doing everything within her power to help. She balances a dusky piece of rose quartz on her forehead as she hums, om, 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 om. Though her third eye is yet to truly open, she swears she can feel an unknown something quivering just behind the dome of her skull. Things haven't been so bad. Her mother is glad. I think you've put all of that misery behind you. Sure, she's 25, still working waiting tables, but she will not allow labor to define her. She recently read that book by wise guy Eckhart Tolle, the one about living now and not later. And though he came off condescending, as enlightened people tend to, he had a few tips she could relate to. Thinking is overrated. The future is a construct. A good deep breath is all you need. Alongside her menstrual notes, records of cramping, crying, cringing, crapping, she makes lists of all her reasons to be grateful. 1. I live on the creek of the poverty line, but I always pay my rent on time, and instant noodles cost pennies, not pounds. 2. So maybe I don't have money or stability, but I have hope and passion and a burgeoning side hustle. I've been drawing and painting, making birthday cards to sell at craft markets. Each one features a different breed of snail. 3. There's a little speckled cat who has been skulking around the bin sheds. No collar, old bones, fleas and scabs. I fed her some tuna, nicknamed her Petunia, and when I open my door, she tries to dash inside. I think she wants to belong to me. I think I want to belong to her. Her nose is the soft shade of honeyed almonds, and I'm obsessed with the tiny glittering hiccups, contained within her hair comb purr. She lets the cat in. She doesn't worry about the potentiality of fleas on her furniture. It's just nice to have someone to hold. Petunia prowls around the flat, inspecting small nooks, interesting corners, rubbing her heart-shaped face against the sofa, claiming everything, mine, mine, mine. She feels a change in the vibrational frequency of the air, an electrical current, perhaps jumping with the fleas from the depths of Petunia's fur. Once a thorough exploration of the flat is complete, they curl together, 2 lumps breathing slow on the sofa. Her phone buzzes on the coffee table. 2 more followers on her business account, and a comment from a snail enthusiast keen to purchase one of her cards. Things are okay, she tells herself. All that misery is behind me. Petunia licks the kidney bean on her wrist. Her phone buzzes again, and although she's thrilled by the prospect of a sale, an opportunity, something to put to her name, she turns her phone off. It's past 9 p.m. and she has rules for herself. She doesn't want the blue light to microwave her brain. She wakes up without the creepy feeling. She wakes up to the scratching insistence of a hungry tongue on her nose. She yawns and rubs Petunia behind the ears. She gets up to feed the baby some tinned tuna, then takes to the mat for a cat-cow cobra before finally turning on her phone. She wonders what card the new customer liked best, the sea snail done in pastel or the land snail done in paint. The phone comes alive in her palms. Her blood stops. Her breath cracks like glass within her chest. It's him. Guzzle King 96. Dirty girl, aren't you? Sent last night at 9:23 p.m. Her muscles seize around her bones. No, 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 she whimpers. Not this. Not him. Not again. She refreshes the page pointlessly, but the message remains rotten on her screen. Her organs writhe like maggots. She breathes not into her stomach, but the shallow chamber of her chest. She thought she'd put this misery behind her. Her new account doesn't even use her real name. It's as if he's been watching, waiting, savoring. To her horror, 3 typing dots begin to dance. She fumbles to close the app before her life can detonate. Too slow. Did you miss me, baby? He asks. Her body heaves as it surrenders to a violent panic attack. Just like that, months of work come undone. She is not a cat, not a pigeon, not a cobra. She is a tiny, thin-shelled whelk about to be crushed beneath the slit grease of his typing thumb. She doesn't even know what he looks like. That's exactly what makes it so much worse. Petunia watches as she sobs into her palms. Her shift at the restaurant begins in 20 minutes, and she has to be there if she intends to pay her rent. Turn off the phone, she commands herself. Turn it off now before it goes too far. But she cannot resist the morbid urges of her body, which needs to understand the threat it cannot prevent. Guzzle King 96 has sent her a new message, but this one is an image, not his usual slippery text. There she is, the version of herself that haunts her. 20 years old with her eyes cut off, a wry smile as though no one could care to hurt her. Camera phone in hand, nipples erect, legs spread to reveal her dripping cunt. I hate you, she murmurs to her past self. I'm going to taste you, says Guzzle King 96. What's worse is that no one stole the image. It was not a gift for a boyfriend, nor the ill-won loot from a hacking. She isn't a victim, just a naive slut who was always going to get what was coming. She did this to herself, punctured her own lungs with the filthy knife tip of her yearning. It was her who posted the image online. Deemed undesirable in high school, she ended up earnest, invalidated, absolutely desperate for attention. She just wanted someone, anyone to want her. Well, wish fucking granted. Now somebody does. Lonely baby, she called herself. Her profile picture was a close-up of her tongue, all pink taste buds and flesh, dark cavern of throat, uvula like a hanging target, just begging the world to come and get some. She posted her pussy, believing that because the photo was cropped, no eyes, the portals to the soul, that she had made herself anonymous, unidentifiable, free to express her lust however she pleased. Not so. She has a tiny but distinctive tattoo of an apple core just above her left knee. She felt so hardcore getting that tattoo, freshly 18, already braving the needle. As a testament to her toughness, she posted it absolutely everywhere online. Well, someone saw the apple core on Lonely Baby's spread leg and thought, I am about to drastically change this bitch's life. Enter Guzzle King 96. He slid into her DMs like a tapeworm, complimenting the pertness of her titties, the tightness of her pussy, the smooth skin on the soles of her feet. I would kill a man just to suck your big toe, he wrote, and she blushed because he was doing what she wanted, treating her like a rare cooked piece of meat. She responded to his messages, all winky faces and ... She sexted him, asking him to imagine her tongue on his testicles, her lips around the girth of his cock. You'd like that, wouldn't you? He teased her. You fucking cunt slut, you whore, you desperate cunt. She lay back and touched herself to these words. She came rapturously, orgasm filling every pore. Then he sent her a link. She clicked it, expecting a dick pic, something turgid and terribly lit. Instead, she was met with her own face, the image stolen from her Facebook page. She blinked into her own smiling eyes, misunderstanding as her afterglow dimmed. Then suddenly her stupidity caught up to her. This was no filthy stranger here to thrill her, liberate her, then leave. He'd cracked the locks on the portals to her soul. This tapeworm knew exactly who she was. What the fuck, she typed, cheeks burning. LMFAO, you stupid fucking bitch. Then a message to freeze her bloodstream, her mother's full name and address. I know everything about you, he told her. What would you do to keep your wet little cunt between us? And truthfully, the answer was everything. She knew he had her cornered. She knew she could never face the idea of that image being sent to her mum. Her mother was a woman who thought porn was anti-feminist, who constantly imparted the advice that smart women don't send nudes. She realized she was not a smart woman. Guzzle King 96 exacted his command. She had panic attack after panic attack, locked in the bathroom, bent over the toilet rim, trying to take a close-up of her ass. Her bumhole looked tense, shriveled, graphic. He said if she didn't do it, he would come and find her and take the photos himself. It didn't feel like an empty threat. She did as she was told. Thank you.
Oh my God, that was tremendous. Okay, there's a couple things I need to say about this piece. First of all, you have this dramatic tonal shift halfway through this piece, and that is something that's really hard to land from an author's perspective, right? This piece goes from being so peaceful and so kind of and so in control, right, to being absolutely nightmarish. And it happens like that at a single moment in this piece, and you land that shift perfectly. At no point does it feel like, oh, this has become a different story. It feels like it feels in a weird way both like a complete turn and like a natural, intuitive extension of this character who we've come to know, right? The second thing, the language in this is beautiful, especially in that first half when it's really just the unwinding of a very mundane day. It's your precise control of the details and how you describe that day that makes it really emotionally compelling and really rich, rather than feeling simply mundane, right? And then when things take the awful graphic turn that they take, the language stays just as precise, just as rich. I mean, the use like a tapeworm. Holy, that was so, like, you could not have described that more fucking perfectly. Anyway, it is fucking tremendous. It's a tremendous story. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Sabrina, I don't know if you
I just also wanted to say that Genevieve, your reading voice is absolutely beautiful. Like you know, it is really, you read like you're delivering it. It doesn't just feel read, it feels performed a little. Okay, next up we have Mr. Mark Ward. Anything you want to say about this before you start, Mark?
No, just it's a short story called Whiteout.
All right.
Whiteout. I woke and it was just like any other morning. Glenn must have been rushing again because it was the door slam that roused me. I would go downstairs and find crumbs everywhere, the butter left out, and a burned first round of toast. Glenn had a very important job at the ministry. He was often stressed, but our home was his retreat. He would unwind with me and be the man I first met, if not carefree, then certainly unencumbered. I swung my legs out of the bed. The unsteadiness in the movement, like a drunk hitting the cold air, receded as I stood on my feet, but the pain shot through me, running up my spine, latticed across my shoulders and across the back of my head, which felt like I'd been punched. I stood in the pain and tried to think about beyond it, before it. Can't remember. Must have been a lie then, as my mother would say. I was sweating from the ache. I looked at the bed and there was a sweat image of myself. I headed into the shower, turned it on to full, and practically scalded myself clean. I took my tablets from the bathroom cabinet and held them in my hands. Pain, inflammation, and this one was for my memory. Would it make me remember? What had I forgotten? I took the tablets and went to look at myself in the mirror of the cabinet and found none. It was a solid wooden door. I dried and started to dress. I pulled on a t-shirt and found myself bleeding from the back of my head, barely bleeding, but consistently so. Little rivulets. I felt around there and came away with striations of blood and more questions. I looked at the bed sheet. The blood was matted in, dried and matted in again, a crust forming. Had it been like that yesterday? Had it been like that earlier? Still sweating, the heat came on, and I felt tired, but I refused to sleep. That's what I did yesterday, wasn't it? I explored the back of my head with my hands the best I could. More blood. I began to feel woozy. The windows were fogging up. I needed to turn down the thermostat because there wasn't one anywhere. I checked walls, cupboards. There must be an app on my phone. Where was my phone? I checked to find my phone on my computer, a mostly empty screen with just a couple of shortcuts and a start menu that wouldn't open. And it said it was in the middle of a blank open expanse according to its mapping system. But here it is on the kitchen counter, screen broken, battery dead, charger missing. It is lunchtime. It is afternoon. It is dinner time. Outside, it is night. Today's montage would barely cover an hour. My brain defective. He was right. I can feel myself getting worked up. I sit in the armchair by the door, waiting for him and let all the unexplained lost time fall away. I am happy. I love Glenn. I love him. When is he coming home? You dropped your phone. I did say to get a case, but you didn't want one. Glenn was reading the newspaper at the dinner table. Neither of us were terribly hungry, so he just heated up some soup. I don't remember that. I know, that's okay, Connor. A visceral heat flooded my chest, the panic of something very wrong. I stared at him, squinted, and willed the thought to come to the surface. That's not my name. He put down his paper. Are you sure? I know my own name. I gestured dramatically, but lost my grip on the spoon I was holding, accidentally flinging it against the wall. He stared at its flight and descent. What is it then? You're trying to trick me again. You're always... I know my name. He got up and walked over to me. He placed a palm on my upper back and started rubbing idly in a figure of 8. His touch always calmed me, and I remembered the thousands of times he'd done it before. Con, did you take your medication today? I know my name. The line that I'd cast into the depths retrieved nothing. I started to cry. Of course I do. Did I? Do you? Glenn went and retrieved my large pill case with each day's worth laid out for the whole month. You look down at today. Saturday's slot was full. Connor, that's not right. What do you mean? Today is Friday. No, it's not. You were at work all day. It's nighttime. You were at work. Connor, it's Saturday. He started to cry. I remember when he was happy. When we were young and carefree, not this, not what we have now. He held out the pills for me to take. I already took them, I was shouting now. Take your pills. I took them this morning. He was crying. His crying was huge for a man normally so stoic, like something had erupted at him. I'd never seen him like this before. I'm gonna have to get help, a stranger, to come to our house every day if you won't take these. I took him in my arm. I took him in my arms. Glenn, I took them this morning. He brought his face close to me. The pills. What are they for? How long have we been together, Connor? My name's not... But I saw us, younger. I would wait for him to come home. I watched the world from the window. I was numb. I don't remember much else, just us and him, nothing from before. Does our marriage mean nothing to you? That's not fair. Of course it does. He pulled himself out of my embrace. He stood up and pushing his hand into my face said, well, take fucking pills then. I woke up on the bathroom tile. I woke on my side, on the floor beside the bed. I woke curled into the armchair, creak in my neck. He called me Connor. I pulled on my oversized robe like being wrapped in a heated towel and walked to the window. It was snowing so hard that I couldn't see our street, a blizzard of white. I stared, looking for inconsistencies. How easy would it be for him to fake that? He had money, simple movie magic. And I felt like a monster. The way he cried wasn't fake. He was hurt. He called me Connor. There's so much I can't remember. Even that conversation held at arm's length, my brain slowly dissolving. Is it dementia? Is he lying to me? Is it both? Did I take my pills? Do I need them? He called me. I know it's not my name, but whatever it is hiding from me. I want him to hold me, tormentor or lover. I don't care. I need him. Why has this taken my name from me? It's been days. I'm not hungry. Perhaps I have been feeding myself, whipping up some haute cuisine. His stuff is still there, post with his name on it. Nothing in mine. I can't shake the feeling that he's lying to me. I scour the house for proof. I find nothing. I am so tired I fall into the armchair, into bed, I fall asleep on the toilet. A nurse came. He sat in my armchair. He worked long shifts. When I was awake, he was there. Glenn was gone. No sign of him for days. He had vanished into the staged snow. The nurse didn't speak English. He fed me baby food and made sure I took my tablets for pain. When I swallowed them all, he patted my arm like he was proud of me. The snow outside the window obliterated everything. Outside of meal times, the nurse slept. A creak in my side. A memory of pain. There was none. I ran my hands over my head. Nothing. What does Glenn do for a living? Where did we meet? The nurse drinks. He thinks I don't notice. It's easy to get one over on someone whose brain is supposedly failing, but my nose is as strong as ever. I can smell the booze. Can't drink on this medication, I remember the doctor saying. Ornate room, expensive consultant, blurry figures standing around with blurry faces, broken up with overemphasized frowns like a sad clown painting. I could remember then. I remember the fear of not remembering anymore, the one consistent thing between then and now. The dream, a function, Glenn and me, the arm candy. Bored, I flirted with the bartender, the rage in Glenn, the blame, the volley. When was the last time you touched me? The loving husband, the carer, those tears, lost, crying. Have I been cast off? Has he someone new, someone more stable, less likely to embarrass? The thick snow batters the glass. Facing the window on the phone, he's much the same. He's less there every day. I throw off the blanket. Look at you playing dumb. That's what you want from me, to be less. That's exactly what you want, me to fade away to nothing. I throw my fists at him, but they barely have the force of a scared child, defensively play fighting, eyes closed and failing. The nurse lifts me into his arms so easily, like I weigh nothing. He moves towards the bed, but instead he holds me, cradles me. He sings in what must be his native tongue. I don't recognize it. Just like Glenn, to put me with someone who doesn't speak English. No one to complain to, no one to listen. I wake at dawn, the nurse sitting in the chair, staring at me. I start to cry. I just want to know what's real. I just want something I can trust. He speaks softly in what sounds like German spoken with a thick Russian accent, but with each word on the verge of slurring, shrouded in radio static. I just want someone to tell me what's real. He holds my hand. I want Glenn. Where is he? I ask the nurse again, but I can't see anything. The snow is inside the room, between us. He is still holding my hand. His body flickers in and out behind the blizzard of snow in the bedroom. He's not wearing his uniform. He is crying. I can't make out what he's saying. The wind is too loud. He holds all the answers, but I know I will never know them now. Would I even believe him if he told me? Despite the snow separating us, covering us both, he is still holding my hand. I know he won't let go. I know he won't let go. Is it Glenn? I will never know. The snow fills the room completely. Thank you.
Mark, that scared the shit out of me. This is incredible, Mark, because this, from second one of this story that this narrator is disoriented, right? But the way you lead us into the disorientation and the dementia is so like unbelievably relatable, right? Like you start with just like the small thing of noticing just that trickle of blood on the back of your head and not knowing where it came from. And I mean, even if you aren't, suffering from cognitive decline, we've all had moments like that where you wake up and you're disoriented, you're foggy, and you've got an injury or you've got something is wrong, right? And you just slowly, gradually, incrementally move forward and increase and escalate that sense of disorientation and psychological like confusion, right? In a way that allows us to just slide into this until, by the end, we're completely lost within this mind that is also completely lost. And it is it's fucking horrifying, man. This is absolutely terrifying. And it's wonderful too. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And thanks to Sabrina and Elle and William and Rudy for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Lindsay Lerman is up next. And Lindsay, I believe you're going to be reading from your book. What Are You?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Yeah, okay. I don't have a super loud voice. Thanks for having me, everybody. And this has been really nice and seems very like kind and supportive, which is pretty rare. I think I've been like lucky to find a few people, but it's it's a harsh landscape. This is a really nice like alternative, seems like. Yeah, so okay, I'm gonna read just a section from this. I guess it's probably really short compared to what everyone else has read. So I mean, I could maybe read a second one if you want, or I could just keep it really short.
No, read whatever you're comfortable with, as much or as little as you'd like.
Yeah. So I don't really know how to describe the book. It moves quickly. I won't bother trying to describe it. I'll just read a section that's near the end. It has 50 sections. I'll read the 42nd section. Yeah. Okay, this is number 42. Time slows when we light a joint and take our clothes off and play the music as loud as it goes. And it stays slow and gets slower, swimmingly slow for a while, for a crucial while, until we are plunged back into the flow and the momentum of living for the work that makes living possible. There's just that one window, so small, so quick to close, and the loneliness returns. Sometimes I imagine that I've achieved calm clarity, but usually I have not. Sometimes I allow myself the fantasy of imagining you dying alone, unwanted and alone, ODing on something you didn't even want, but were powerless to turn down. But I know you don't die. No part of you, any of you, ever dies. I keep watching as my learning to live makes you wish even harder that I were dead, but you never die, you never do. I let my guard down for 2 minutes and you drag me back to the pit. I want to be gone, I want to be done with this. No, I don't. Sometimes the wrong thing wishes for death. Sometimes I still want to feel your intensity sweeping through every part of me, wringing me out, leaving me to die on the floor, alone. I have tried every method I know to explain you away, to feel you away. It no longer matters, I think. Maybe we wanted something from each other. Did we want something from each other? Did we want to reach the other side together? Did we? Did we want to drown together, to end it all? Did we want to know what it's like to submit? Did you imagine that you might find in me some limitless pleasure, blooming in my organs, snaking through my sockets, coiling and waiting, waiting everywhere? Could this body be the source of more you? Could this body be that pleasure? I wanted to survive. I'm just like every other living thing, but I also did it from love, for love. I didn't know what love was. Now I'm starting to know what it is, but I know I did it from love, from my small but growing understanding of it. I can hold this fact close. Your love is bullshit, has always been bullshit. And I know this. I wanted it anyway. I wanted your bullshit anyway. Wish me dead again and again, it won't matter. Because if you live through me, we end as one. We end together. And all these years you have whispered in my ear, are you ready to suffer? But I swear to God, swear to God, swear that you know nothing of suffering. The persistent asking gives away the not knowing. Wish me dead if you must, it won't matter. Because I will start asking myself, am I ready to suffer? Back to the beginning. I know you. I love you. You are in me, and maybe, just maybe you are me. The question is, how do I feel the love, hate I feel for you and continue existing? With bitterness, you once seemed to say, I bet it takes years to learn how to fuck you. And I shrugged in response as if to say, yeah, probably. Maybe I regret every time I have fallen in love. What's that? Okay, I'll read one more short section. Again, it's toward the end. This is number 45. I've never read this one out loud, so I might stumble a little bit. It's a fact that I'm a problem for you, and now I can see it. It's just a fact that I'm a threat that cannot be neutralized by possession, by accumulation. Add me to the miles-long list, assign me a number or even a different name or whatever you want, but something will linger. I'm not reducible. None of us is. For some reason, this is a problem for you. You show your hand the moment you break all the rules you set, the ones you needed to set, because you don't know what love is and you don't know how to be watchful, don't know how to swim, because you've always been water. You're all the same, all the fucking same. How can you be so big, so fundamental? Why does so much of everything operate according to you? But affluence without abundance is possible, even if you say it's not. The space of the bed or the rug on the living room floor, not much more than a few square feet, but some strange room into which we step, where anything is possible, where nothing else exists, where for a few moments you stop counting. And I stop noticing how you operate because I am tumbling in the surf of feeling, nothing but feeling, how does it feel? And I am very rich, the richest woman in the solar system. But that's not the whole story. The door can be opened, the rug can be rolled up, the room can disappear, and it can just dissolve. I've seen it. You looked at me and said, no one will ever want to fuck you again. And I said, fine. You said, your heart or whatever it is, it's a wasteland. How do you love like that all the way through? It's impossible. And I said, fine. Knowing all the while that my heart opens onto a horizon, an endless horizon, whether you see it or not. I do not see the point unless we are risking ourselves. I've stopped feeling hunger. It's gone. You took it from me. You beat it out of me. I beat it out of me. It's gone. Once I saw how stupid it was, how it was just another instance of pleasure built on distant suffering, it disappeared. You couldn't meet my gaze. Still can't. Silently, I said, so help me God, I will show you yourself. But I know it was probably just as useless as any other prayer. I blinked hard, hoping you'd disappear in the space of the blink, but you didn't. The hunger did, though. It fell away. I wanted to have nothing to do with taking. Thanks to you, I became content to starve. I understood Simone Weil for the first time. I understood her death. I understand now that I can know something with every cell in me and outside of me and still not know how to act on it or from it. And I understand that this is just called living most of the time. I understand that all that matters is whether I can find your eyes and see what I can see in them. Like the way it doesn't matter whether someone is beautiful or handsome or sexy, because it only matters what kind of desire you can see in their eyes and whether it's the kind of desire you need or want, and it's whether the fact of your energies exchanging would produce anything valuable. It's whether the fact of the exchange would be altering. If only I could find your face, your eyes, your form, but I cannot. What are those times you once seemed to ask me? Those times when your body met another and could not turn back. Moments of no return, I understood. The question is, what will be the content of those moments of no return to come? Will I know they're happening as they're happening? Or will I only be capable of knowing that anything happened in retrospect? I know now that I wanted you to have an experience with me. Yes, I wanted it all along. I wanted you to steal me. I want to be the site of your experience. Live it through me, live it in me. Maybe there was never another way. Maybe I just finally understand life. Is this what the mystics knew? That's it.
Lindsay, that was wonderful. You get at a space here that a lot of literature like strains towards and rarely actually achieves, which is to say, this is like at the same moment both really intimate and personal and really universal. This is like a trip into the collective unconscious, right? Where like it feels like somebody's like letting out like their most passionate and hidden thoughts, right? But it also occupies the space that we all kind of drift into at night, like when we're laying down and we start to think of like, maybe this is just like my pathology, but these little vindictive thoughts pop into your head as you drift off to sleep, right? These like, I love you. There was a moment there where you talk about like, I allow myself the pleasure of fantasizing you dying alone. And it's like, man, I've had that thought at night, lying down to go to sleep, thinking about like an ex or an old friend who pissed me off or something, and throughout you consistently strike this tone throughout. You enter that space throughout where it might as well, it's obvious that it's the author's thoughts, but it might as well be the reader's thoughts, right? And it's this weird and wonderful equilibrium, and it's a great piece of writing, Lindsay. I'll have to pick up the book and actually read it all the way through. Thank you.
I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Hey. Oh, shoot. Okay, hold on. I just lost the document that has the next reader. I just closed it on accident.
Do you want me to introduce the next reader?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Chris Kelso is up next.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Brilliant. I just wanted to thank you for having me, and I came quite late to the party, but everybody's been so earnest and powerful and poetic, and I'm just going to read this weird story about amputation fetish. So, and apologies for the camera no working. That could be a blessing in disguise. So I'm just going to be a disembodied voice reading Juvenalia. So just to forewarn you. So this is from Voidheads, which is coming out through Schism Press, and do let me know if my Scottish accent is a bit thick. El Nash is used to it, but maybe not everybody else is used to it.
No, we can
You
hear
had
you
this
clearly and perfectly.
Oh, thank you. You had this dream about how it would cut you, so clean like a laser, and tender, and you fed in your slender arm, and it sucked and enveloped. You paused when you got to the elbow, heard the wall groan, a single crack forming, splintering concrete, veining northward. You looked at your friends for reassurance, found none. No amount of drink would take the edge off. You tried to smile and enjoy. The truth is you weren't ready. And I let out this piercing horse laugh as the image of you standing with your arm plugged elbow deep inside the wall hit home. She and Ori waited for it to happen. People who indulged in this practice were known as void heads. You were becoming one. You couldn't feel it, you just felt weird. Dana looked tall and stately, but was micro-braided and pinched in a fucked for life kind of way. Probably conceited, definitely temperamental. She stood with what she perceived to be a good-natured grin across her face, but it barely qualified. Resting beside Dana were two loose elbow stumps. Even though Dana had her amputation when she was 15, she remained haunted by them. Frequently had to remind herself she could no longer gesticulate, that her words were on their own. "I made love to avoid head," Dana asked, looking at Ori out the side of her eyes. The boy grinned knowingly. "No," you replied. You felt innocent and pathetic. It's like sex with an ugly lover. You overcompensate, for what they lack. Their nothingness becomes something else, something beyond physical. And when you introduce any transcendent element to the bedroom, you create the potential for otherworldly fucking, Ori added, with words too clearly rehearsed. Ori was the original Voidhead, an overmuscular boy, probably the best looking in Isham High, but self-destructive and completely aimless. He had blonde hair set in thick waves, took and sold anabolic steroids, and went to the gym 3 days a week because he always skipped class and had no other hobbies or discernible interests beyond buying and selling drugs. His mind showed only faint, disturbing images, things passing through strangely, as if a sea of it kept its great swell upon him, an odd fish swam in it or else drowned. Ori was the first to find the Void Realm. It showed up in his mother's cellar, it appeared one day. Simply discoverer, not the creator, yet everyone treated Ori as if he were the John Logie Baird of Isham High. He had his left ear removed first. The amputation was performed in front of his whole year group, or everyone who mattered. At Josh Patrick's 18th birthday, they all went back to his house and Ori had his left leg lopped off too. And people really respected him for that. A craze of sorts ensued. It took him almost a year of relentless donkey raises to get nice calves, and this made it all the more satisfying when they were deleted from his anatomy. You winced and then I told you to shut up and quit being a baby, that it was time you lose something now you were 16. "My dad will fucking kill me," you protested. "Oh, Daddy, come on, it'll take a second. Once it registers something, it just snips it off. Easy, no pain, lubed and cauterized, cleaner than a piercing, safer than sex." You thought about this thing behind the wall, cleaving away your limbs, and wondered how people could say it didn't hurt. "Still, bitch," Ori said. "Come on, it'll be over soon, honey." Then I tried to console. The growling started and there was the sound of something locking into place. You went quiet, stunned into silence. The innards had narrowed around your arm. You squirmed and tugged, but it was too late. "Here it comes, honey, it'll be real quick, promise." There was a final tug as if the thing behind the wall wanted to check its purchase. You squealed as you felt the socket pop. You screamed in pain. You were released to the floor amid a sluice of alien lubricant. The amputation was complete. Perfect shoulder disarticulation. You'd be so popular after this. Dana and Ori were all smiles. Billy crept to the cellar. He had all his limbs intact, a veritable icon of flax-haired, strong-boned, prepubescent well-being. He'd been warned not to go near the cellar because, according to his mother, there was a monster down there. He was mental breakdown serious about it. His older brother Ori had started mutilating his own body under the guise of an immortal status that Billy couldn't comprehend, and so had most people at Isham High. People were having legs and arms and genitals surgically removed by void space, and it seemed the more body parts you shed, the more popular he became. It was the ritual accomplishment to perceive this partial self-enforced paraplegia. Billy didn't get it. It all seemed like choreographed narcissism to him. Plus, he would piss himself about what the monster might do. He didn't feel ready to let go of any of his body parts. The youngest person he knew to have the procedure was a blind girl in his class called Eve, with her eyes enucleated. You know, those eunuchs and mastectomized teenagers, those incomplete mannequins just walking around with skin and muscle flaps perfectly transposed over their stumps was like something out of a horror film to Billy. He overheard Ori on the phone one night saying the only thing you couldn't do was get a decapitation because that would fucking kill you. You killed the brain, you killed the zombie, Billy guessed. But ever since his mother left for a week-long vacation at the health resort, Billy could hear the cellar rumbling as if hungry. The void realm whimpered until he came back. Billy noticed the membrane looked off grey, sick. It was expanding, overtaking boxes of family heirlooms. Billy noticed his beloved plush dinosaur Barry half devoured beneath its wet mass. But even Billy knew this thing would be food. He just didn't have a heart to catch or kill a cat or anything, so ran upstairs and unfoiled cold cuts from the fridge. At the top of the cellar, he heard a huge crash, the sound of rubble falling, concrete altering its proportions. He inched down the steps. He got to the foot of the staircase and noticed that the void realm had moved closer, about a foot. He tossed 3 strips of meat in its direction and ran backwards. You want what you okay do are? Billy slammed the door. He did not listen. Ori hadn't been home in 3 days. Billy's grandmother was meant to turn up on Sunday to babysit but hadn't shown up. Billy was self-sufficient enough to cope on his own. He had his own lunch. He made his own lunches and ironed his school outfit every day. Weekends he played video games and watched cartoons. He made sure he stayed away from the cellar and ignored the noises that shook the house at night. You want what you okay do are, it howled in a hideous garbled mantra. A week passed, no sign of Grandma, no sign of Ori or Mother. Billy knew something was wrong, but he didn't do anything. Ori often disappeared for days. His mother was in a rehab facility, and the process of fixing people who were broken took time. His grandmother was old and may have gotten her week mixed up in the calendar. One day after school, Billy noticed the sound of weeping. He followed the noise to the cellar till it stopped. He saw the naked void realm on the floor, having brought the wall down with it. You want? Billy sucked in his gut until his jagged little ribs indented the surrounding flesh. His fingers trembled. He stroked its rubbery folds that seemed to swell towards him in gratitude. Billy caressed its creases. The void realm was content, purring almost. Billy's shoulders unhunched, his back relaxed. He stood patting the prolapsed organs of the wall creature. You're just like anything else, aren't you? Billy said. He made the mistake of putting his ear to it next. The sad weakness of Billy. It sucked his head in and secured him by the throat. He felt the whole ligate his arteries. Billy was becoming a celebrity. Billy couldn't know. The void realm groaned with joy. Stories taste better than meat. That's me. That's the mercifully short excerpt from Voidheads.
Chris, this is so upsetting, but so good. What I love though here is it could have been really easy to write this as pure like vicious exploitation, right? Like as just pure exploitation body horror. But instead, and yes, it's incredibly vivid and it's incredibly graphic and it's incredibly nasty. But instead of that being all that's there, there's you really shine a light on these characters who are engaging in this graphic behavior, and you really try to understand them. You really get us to try to understand them. You really try to it's like Cronenberg or something, where you're really digging into this phenomenon. You're not simply like letting it unfurl for kicks here. You're really getting into like the psychology of this perversion, and that's like what the best body horror does, right? Like all the while like keeping us like really uncomfortable, which is exactly where you want us to be, right? But no, this is wonderful, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much, William. I really appreciate that, and thanks for having me as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. I don't think I've ever heard anything like that, to be honest. And
Wow.
yeah, it makes me want to read the book for sure. Like a
I'll
whole
send you a copy, Sabrina, I promise.
Yeah, oh, that would be amazing. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Next up we have Kay Vo, and he is reading 3 poems, and he's in a different time zone than all of us. He's joining from Nigeria. Kay, you there? Kay? I'll give him a minute.
He's still he's here because
I
he's still logged in. He didn't get booted or anything, but maybe he's having some technical difficulties. If not, we can give him a little bit here, and if not, we could go on to the next reader and then go back to him to give him a chance.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I'll send him a message, and let's move on to the next reader.
Oh, cool. Yeah, because it's not unusual. Zoom can be a motherfucker sometimes. It's not unusual for people to have technical difficulties or to decide to go to the bathroom at the worst possible moment. Okay, so Julia Fisher is next.
Hey,
Hey, Julia.
hello. Do you want me to introduce it? I don't know if you've been told anything.
I have a blurb if you'd like.
Cool. Yeah,
So
go for it.
all
This
I have is that you're involved with an exciting new and secret project with Witchcraft Mag, and that the work you're reading right now is currently unpublished.
Yes, and this will be probably, unless it's another. This is probably part of it. This is definitely part of a thing I'm doing. This is a short story currently titled Arms. It is about half of it because it's too long and I'm bad at cutting. So I will read the beginning and then there'll be a break and then I'll read part of the middle. I don't think there's anything else I need to say, so I think I will start. Also, do I sound okay? I don't know what the volume is like. Does that sound
You
fine?
sound perfect.
Yeah, great. Rebecca Pemberton stood in her kitchen peeling potatoes, a behavior she would hide from anyone capable of seeing her. She resented the image of some domestic she-servant, cooking and cleaning and maintaining a home. She refused to bring dishes to potlucks out of fear of breaking the veneer of the fuelless cyborg of 21st century self-sufficiency. But Rebecca Pemberton did eat and cook and clean. People simply did not see it. The peeler was poorly designed. Its handle was too small and the blade too large, and Rebecca's fingers tangled around the mass of flesh without regard for what was animal and what vegetable. The edge sailed across mud-cracked, mud-stained skin, revealing rough-hewn white flesh. Then, with a slip, a run of red diluted itself in the gathering moisture and starch on its surface. Rebecca sighed and placed down the now blemished potato and ran the injured digit under cold water. It was the kind of cut that bled far more than it hurt. She watched the water wash over her wound and listened to the new silence of her home. There was a street lamp at the eye line of her kitchen window. Its orange glow allowed for covert kitchen runs without the disruptive snap of a light switch. For the coldest and most refreshing glasses of water in the hours that don't exist in the night of the morning, for the swirling moment when all of the wine of an evening gushes in all at once. And to counterbalance the blue breach of light from a bare fridge. Rebecca realized her eyes had lost focus staring into the lamp. Her finger had gone numb from the cold. She returned to the preparation of her meal. The potatoes were boiled, the salmon seared, and the freezer, thought to be holding green beans, held only an empty bag, rudely replaced despite containing nothing but freezer burn. The meal was still sufficient. Rebecca had yet to adapt to cooking individual portions. She binned the remaining potatoes, recalcitrant at the idea of Tupperware and leftovers. She sat in the armchair and read some book about Soviet spies absent-mindedly, her thumb drifted to the wound, fresh and still acclimatizing to the air. She could feel its pinkness stretching from the border of her nail to the middle of her fingerprint. In the center of the slit, she found a protrusion. What at first felt to be a scab was harder. Not a barrier of congealed blood, rather cartilage or even bone. Rebecca shifted away from the passage discussing a human chain running from Vilnius to Tallinn to look over this lump. Her finger was as it usually was, extending out from the knuckle, poorly imitating its neighbors, each a failure in its facsimile of the other. There was, however, a bulge at its tip, where the implement had made its incision. It didn't look quite like a regular cut. It was almost as if Rebecca's skin had simply expanded by a millimeter or so. She was sure that just moments ago there was a cut, but now there was distinctly the inverse. Rebecca was more perplexed than concerned. Even that feeling dissolved out of her attention nearly immediately. She returned to her book. Then a cut. She goes to work. Her day continues. She goes to the toilets in her office. We resume. The mirrors in the bathroom were towering structures that stretched beyond the lip in the ceiling, disappearing into blinding fluorescent light. Rebecca looked back at herself. The wings of her eyeliner slanted unevenly, imperceptible yet infuriating. A creaking door jolted her back into the world out of her reflection. She reached, turned the tap, and felt it gripped, but not by her hand. Some nameless feeling of grasping creeping out from her, desperate to entangle the tap. Crawling around the chrome coating, she saw the wound. Malformed but recognizable, a miniature hand was sprouting from Rebecca Pemberton's middle finger. This small hand held her vision, its presence so fragile, its perforation so unbelievable that she worried it may be shaken out of reality with any vigorous movement. But this hand held on. It did not vanish into vapor or crumble into tiny pieces. Its tendons flexed and nails formed themselves, solidifying and keratinizing in plain sight. 5 pinhead-sized caps to 5 fingers wriggling fresh muscles. The hand had pulled itself into reality by the handle of the tap. A faucet vomited out its contents a few sinks over, and Rebecca unclenched her jaw. She let go of the tap, her hand a fractal copy of itself. She shifted her new fingers and formed a fist. The small hand sat on the periphery of her mind throughout the day. Rebecca made a purposeful decision not to be disturbed by it, at least not to make that disturbance known. It was discreet enough to fold in on itself out of sight if needs be, tucked away as sugars were dropped in coffee under the watchful, gossip-thirsty eyes of her co-workers, concealed beneath the broad beige table in the meeting room, stashed into her palm as she scanned her bus card. Rebecca did consider consulting a doctor. Unusual growths are rarely a positive sign. However, something in her head held against the thought. Maybe it was intrigue as to what would happen with her body's new occupant if left undisturbed. Maybe a fear of becoming the subject of an article in the type of magazine she would skim but never deigned to purchase. By the time she arrived home, she had mostly mastered its muscles, though it still did not fully freely feel hers. The wound had some range of motion, as a full-scale hand should, but the smallest of its digits were too short to bend very far. It often moved in unexpected ways, darting and poking as if some other brain or body was in charge, only deputizing Rebecca when other pressing matters arose. The wound grasped around a hairpin like the handle of a knife. Rebecca brought it up to the magnifying face of a mirror, expanding the minuscule fingers to almost anatomical scale. She traced along the ridges with naive curiosity, each bump and plane expanding the hand's understanding of its quarry. The hand clenched the hairpin so tightly that Rebecca could not pry it from its grip. She soon gave up and turned to more important things. A pipe had been leaking beneath the bathroom sink for almost a month now. She had emailed the landlord, but Rebecca knew it would never get repaired that way. It was probably just a loose nut or bolt or some simple mechanical affixment. The doors beneath the sink were rarely opened, barring recent expeditions to sop up the stream. The hinges were rusted and stiff. Rebecca assessed the underbelly, its rigid intestines interlacing ahead of a spine of unfinished brick. The leak was fairly obvious, but in an awkward position. She had to kneel away from the sink in order to slip her arm and head within. The offending nut showed less resistance than expected when Rebecca wrenched at it, sending her skull backwards into the lip of the cabinet with a bump. The leaking stopped. There was a very particular smell, a dead smell, not rotting, just dead. It soaked into the air. Rebecca lit a candle. It didn't change much in any practical sense. The smell was still there, but it felt better. A tiny flame flickering, wax melting, pitiful scent diffusing, lavender. It had been a gift from her last job. There was some saccharine phrase stamped on it, which Rebecca had scraped off in embarrassment on the evening she'd received it. Never got lit, just sat on a shelf to give off the impression that this was a residence that did self-care and spa days. She considered binning the candle when she noticed the amount of dust that it had accumulated, but the thought of the shelf looked bare without it. She suffocated the flame with the fingers that she had been attached to the longest. She looked down at the finger hand, which had picked up the spent carbonized match, prodding and crumbling the charcoal and crushing it in its palm. Rebecca awoke the next morning on her side. Usually this gave her a stiff neck, which it had. That wasn't what took her attention. She felt something in her hair. Her half-sleeping self had dismissed it as the embrace of a lover, stroking her as she roused. Now fully awake, she remembered that she was alone. She rolled over to a thankfully empty bed. She then investigated the wound, which looked as it had done the night before, tiny, jittering, and grasping, though it had eventually abandoned its match. Then something moved her hair again. It crept into the periphery of her vision from the back of her skull. Another hand had grown. And I'll leave it there.
That was fucking great. Okay. What really got me was how vivid and precise your descriptions were. And like, that's a tricky tightrope to walk, right? Because it is so easy to lean one side or the other, to have descriptions that are vivid to the point of being like flowery and where you completely get lost in the grotesqueness of this thing, or in the gory, the literally gory details of this, right? And it's also like possible to be precise and concise to a fault, to the point where you're kind of, out of a desire to emulate Hemingway or whatever, you kind of have like sanded the finish off of this thing. And you do not do either. You don't fall into either of those traps. Instead, there's this incredible, remarkable precision to every line that's just, it feels so carefully crafted and so remarkable. And also, given the subject matter, so unnerving, right? The precision of it makes it scarier, makes it more disturbing than if you had just like let it loose, right? It's really good, Julia. It's a wonderful, nasty little piece of body horror, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna add really quick that I was thinking, to have the idea of a hand that grows another hand is one thing, but then to have to actually write that, like write the mechanics of it, like, I don't know, I'm just imagining you know, in a room, like looking at the way your fingers move and then kind of trying to describe each little joint. And yeah, I mean, but there's something like, you pick the hardest medium to express this. Like writing is literally like, you know, dance would have been easier. Jesus, but yeah. Okay. And next up, we have Keiko coming at us from Croatia.
Sabrina, I feel so bad about the fact that you ended up with Keko. Keko, I apologize. I still can't pronounce your last name, man.
Shit, it's Keko.
No,
Okay.
it's I was calling every time the first dozen times he came to Misery Loves Company, I'd be like, Keko, Kiko, Keiko, help me out here, man. But yeah, sorry, Keko. The floor is yours. And how do you pronounce your last name? I
Okay.
want to know because I still can't.
Okay, so you're lagging again for me. So my
I think
internet
you're
is
lagging
obviously fucked up. I don't know.
You're lagging a little bit for us. Maybe try leaving and coming back, and then you'll probably be good.
Okay, I'll try, but yeah, I don't believe that. But
It's
give me
okay
a second.
now. I think he's all right. I think
Okay,
you're-
yeah. Oh, oops. I think he just left though. Well, while we're waiting here, I'm just going to put the links to the poems he's going to read in the chat.
I remember these. This is like when he first came in, right? Like when he first started showing up here and reading stuff.
Yeah, that first batch is one of the first batches of his poems that I think we published on Misery Tourism.
Yeah, after we bullied him into coming in. Yeah. All right, cool.
I
get Love you, buddy.
I mean, I can.
Yes, you're much
do you
better
hear me
now.
right now? Yeah, okay, because every camera is blocked for me right now. So, okay,
Gotcha.
well, we'll try. You'll have to put on links because if people don't.
I put the links in the chat for you.
Okay, so I mean, three. You put all the three links.
I put all
because-
3 links in the chat. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I'm always doing rereading because Josh, I don't have much time to write these days. So, but only I think I read only 3 of the 5 stuff I'll read tonight. So don't be jealous, Josh. I mean, really, it's like so they're not really as I used to read on MLC. There were usually like cohesive batches. So so right now I'll be reading like I'm going to do introduction, which Gigi doesn't approve, but it's like the first batch you ever published. So I'll read the second poem, and so I'll read one that Josh really liked. So so I decided to read that tonight also, and one of my favorite poems of mine, and the new poem also. So that'll be for tonight. 5 poems. So the second one from Misery, it's called Anniversary Vision. And if you don't hear me well, you can stop me or something. All there's to know about us. No dick marked our decade of people getting sick more and more, of plants copulating, and it's been a downward season. Isn't it better to the echoing green? She passed under a waterfall, he fell under a train. Others hiccupping in their room. Traces of hope pinch like grains of sandstone. We look at twice the sun, surrounding us with the sound of pollen appreciation in graves. So, and the next one, I didn't read this one before. I think it's in a British magazine. So since this is a European reading, lit are the torches of strife. Who lit them? Who carried them over the heights? Who left them alight? Who impatient torch? and 3 from the document. And just so remotely descending into this position. Hi, hello, sorry to thanks. No problem. Most meetings don't require camera. Most times I can mute myself and cry, but I just sigh, record the calls and scroll through filtered profiles with filtered jobs. I'm not young nor pretty enough to get out of this chair. I sigh again, sorry. Could you repeat the question? Also fine. This is my 15 seconds of shame repeated a couple of times in a couple-hour meeting, muted back to not being pretty nor young enough, but I do have several traumas, but I don't know how to brand them. I have fewer friends, so my intestines chip in, taking me out to colonoscopy, gastroscopy, exciting new places. Though next morning just feels worse. Organs are bullies, an awful lot. That's back to the chair, ossifying, blocking them all. Scrolling through society like an old man hating everyone, just wanting to be hated back. Rituals ought to be married to formalize their boredom. Still, how I do look forward to spending my night with them while boss is turning the last chapter of the last meeting into a stand-up. Before his muted, private, ossifying audience, green glow of paying humor, seconded and haloed by his son's screams. I think about blaming my parents, how they hushed me to the ground. Bye, goodbye, sure, by tomorrow. Alas, bones crackle like parquet. I feel my pulse then faint, only to find the flat ossified into me. But I have another endoscopy in an hour. I get out, but I can't get rid of the flat on my back, the shell. My new organ trembles as I walk through the street, and people avoid me, not to get hit by a brick, so I crawl to stop the earthquake. In the middle of the street, with a flat on his back, a snail won't make it to the appointment. Dilapidated, he's dying a death of a building, interrupted by cyclists nagging rings. And next one is society quotes, and I know the social present. Over the river stands a forest, while on this side a little flower, tender and winsome as only a flower can be, dyed with light and bright sky, by the river grows. Mother Fir treats it with an epithet before she nears the river. Father Feather pats it with forte, with a sharp eye strikes upon the river. Flower is winsome and beautiful for defying the rain, wind, and bora. Mother Fir leans above the river, and the reflection of her character is beautiful. While Father Feather sees some fish and himself as their way to the sky. How can a flower which is winsome not wish its reflection in this river? Over the river stands a forest. I see me, said Flower, to the left tender as a birch, to the right strong as a pine. Down there I'm a weeping willow, good, wise oak, and first and foremost a flower that also gives you its best. And the last one is turned after a vivid dream and forgot most of it. Waking up, oh, it says my connection is unstable. William, do you hear me all right, or?
Yes, no, you're good right now. You early on in your reading, there was a little choppy, but it settled into nice rhythm, excuse me, here where we can hear the vast majority of what you're saying.
Okay, you're lagging.
There might be a little bit of a disconnect between us, but you're coming through clear.
Well, I hope everything's all right because you were lagging on my side, so okay. So turned out to review the dream and forgot most of it. Waking up after noon, and then again after 2. We trash our schooling during breakfast and talk as we prepare ourselves for a walk where we talk about stuff old and new, and action. Our skin is a split sunset, and death so small in the distance. Blessed hours melting away in games, a specific game, the special game, with the most specific special mod. Our bodies and soft, a lot of meat after drinks and or anchovies, garlic and Danish blue cheese, a lot of sweets between puffs, cheap, then some expensive ones, bitter, cocoa and delicate fig pellets. Getting back to cheap ones before going to bed. I don't remember our thoughts, but they were spectacular. Nothing like weeping no more, waking up after noon and then again after 2. Blessed bodies melting away in the sunset, caressing ideas like a leisure goddess. No more talking to death like it's our pet. No more endless seas of a summer shade. Panic attacks my everyday, garlic fig chocolates and bitter blue cheese. That's it.
Keko, man, you killed it as always. And I'm gonna say something that I've said to you a million times before, but I want to repeat it, and then I will talk to about the poems more specifically. I am constantly in awe of your range. Like I have never seen a poet. I am unaware of another poet who could have written both of the 2 poems that begin in your most recent document, the new poems, Remote Work and the Society Quotes, and I Note the Social Present. Those 2, I can't think of another poet who could have written both of those poems because they are so vastly and dramatically different in tone, in style, in every conceivable way. I do want to talk about this Remote Work poem because I am envious of this poem. I am envious of every fucking line of this poem. There's so many just perfect fucking lines in this Remote Work poem that so like precisely capture like the just demoralizing banality of like contemporary work. And I put a few of them in the chat while you were talking, but pretty nor young enough, but I do have several traumas, but I don't know how to brand them. Like it's just such a hilarious and perfect line. And Argans are bullies an awful lot. Like, oh my gosh, I just all of it. There are so many lines here that are just such perfect, concise little satirical statements about like just how awful it is to be alive in the 21st century, sitting behind a computer. But I'm talking to nobody because he lagged out.
He'll listen on YouTube.
Gecko, I'm sorry. I was talking.
I didn't hear anything. You just started.
Oh
like,
no. Okay.
You said like something.
William
like,
kicked him for effect.
Yeah, probably.
No,
so I don't know.
Man, I'll give you the you can watch my full spiel on YouTube, but I'll give you the concise version. First of all,
okay.
As I've said a million times, you have a remarkable breadth as a poet. Like I can't imagine another human being who could have written both the Remote Work poem and the Society Quotes, and I Note the Social Present poem. They are so dramatically different in style, in tone, in execution, in every way. And it's beautiful to see them like appear together like this. The other thing I said is I love the Remote Work poem so much. There are so many incredible, hilarious lines in that poem. Like the line about having many traumas but not knowing how to brand them is just so savage. And the line about the organs, like just the like effect that sitting in front of a computer on Zoom like we are now, but doing degrading work, just the impact that has even on your physical body, you capture it so well in this poem. Anyway, great work, man. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry you're having connection issues.
Yeah, now I won't be able to feed my narcissistic persona by reading a couple of nice compliments in the chat. It
Oh
always appears.
no. Maybe Gigi can copy paste them to you or something.
Yeah,
Gigi's always
Gigi,
right on top
he's
of the
my good
chat.
friend. He'll do that.
Okay.
Thanks, Gigi.
Thank you for reading, Keko.
Yeah.
So Sabrina, my understanding is Kay is still AWOL.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna make it. I don't know what happened. It could be that it's just not a good day for the internet in Nigeria and lost his connection. So yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So Alice is up next, and then after Alice, we'll do one last check to see if Kay has had any luck joining us. I've lost track of who is introducing who. I think it's my turn. So Alice, my understanding is that you're going to be reading an unpublished piece, and that you're the editor-in-chief of a lit mag called Body Fluids, and I will put the Body Fluids link in here.
Yeah. And I actually featured one of Kaiser's stories in my first issue. So if you guys want to go check it out, that would be great. And the piece that I'm reading kind of came about because Elle and I were having a conversation about how one writer in particular, who I won't name, he writes a novel in like 2 days. And this is something that's completely beyond me. So I just decided, fuck it, I'm going to write a novella in a week. Failed miserably, but I'm going to read the first little section of it. And I wanted to warn everybody that this has some references to underage human trafficking. So just, you know, if that's not something that you can handle, just okay. Knew I was pregnant the morning after. Science says I'm delusional, but I knew 60,000 feet in the air, screaming through the black, around the fringe of planetary gravity where the Earth's grip is weak, and from the windows the horizon curves away from you in the arch of a wrist. The fetus spoke to me, a whisper from the dark, and it said, "Hello, world." Concorde seats cost $13,000 round trip that year. The Frenchman could afford my ticket, but not the scandal our affair would cause. They served sliced tropical fruit and fresh-baked pastries, espressos, poached eggs, Benedict and Florentine, and an hour later they served lobster and caviar canapes. They poured Dom Perignon. Nobody knew my man because he was in business, and his business was not to be known to other people in the same business. There were celebrities on the flight, some film stars and royalty. I didn't know them, but the Frenchman pointed them out from behind his whiskey or his cigarette. You could always smoke on the Concorde. Cough, cough, better keep me away from that shit. I couldn't ask the Frenchman to stop smoking because even though I knew women are trained their lives to doubt, all of us doubting, from things we know so deeply our blood rings with them, to things easily proven like bus schedules and ticket dates. I also knew I was crazy and hysterical, and nobody would believe me if I said this, that I knew I was pregnant. Nobody in this scientific marvel tearing a rip in the sky, heralding the new age, would believe me. I didn't believe me, but the fetus said, "Your belly is warm." I asked for and ate 2 pain au chocolat, and after I took a bite of the first one, I asked for some cream, then dipped them in the cream and licked cream off my fingers. And the Frenchman looked at me with this thing on his face, taking over his eyes and the furrows at the corner of his lips. And when I got up, he followed me to the bathroom to tell me he wanted to piss in my mouth. The Frenchman isn't important. I was 12 when he fucked me and made you. I sat down again in the leather aisle seat, and he talked and smoked, and I picked at my wool sweater. I'd pull wisps of wool and pill it between my fingers. When I looked down, the Frenchman would sometimes tell me to look up again at the big digital readouts, black and yellow, around the cabin, telling us how fast we were going and how high we were. In my bag was a book I was reading for school, Stuart Little. In my bag was another book the Frenchman bought me, Le Rouge et le Noir, sorry. My dad thought I was on a fashion shoot in Denver, and I had just seen Paris, for real, Paris, where the Frenchman bought me a real diamond tennis bracelet, paid cash in a shop on the Champs-Élysées, and fucked me from behind, scraping my elbows on a gravestone with soupy, faded letters. It was grey and cold, raining a little, and his thighs were hot and rough with hair against the smooth chill of my arse. I smoked two of his Gauloises, leaning against Stendhal's tomb. We drank the thick hot chocolate Paris is famous for, which has the texture of bisque. I ordered bittersweet, he ordered milk. He took me to a parfumier and he tried to pick out a young floral scent for me, but it was too sugary, too sour. I wanted one with dark, rich things, cardamom, sandalwood, dried roses, oak moss, oud. I wore the diamond tennis bracelet in Paris and on the Concorde, but before I got home, I would hide it inside the zippered pouch with my passport and the pads my dad never acknowledged, except to buy me more pads every 3 months, because I got my period at 10 years old and none of the kids in my class or my teachers knew. My mom was dead and my dad ignored the pouch where I kept my pads. He wouldn't find the book either, because my dad was fundamentally incurious about who I was and what I liked, because he still felt so young and my growing personhood made him feel older. So he distanced himself from my personality as much as he could, and now he would be a grandfather. Does he want to be? I think he would, if he allowed himself to feel his age. Maybe he'll never. Maybe he will when he's dying. I liked caviar even though I was 12. I ate 4 or 5 lobster and almas beluga canapés. I had complicated tastes because the Frenchman had dressed me up and tied me up and hit me and burned me with the ends of cigarettes and mixed his semen with champagne and got me drunk on it. Grief matures the brain. Over the Frenchman's shoulder, the horizon of the world glowed Easter-egged blue under the black velvet of the void. Later, I would sometimes ask boyfriends to choke me as I came. Even later, I'd ask them to call me little girl. I'd cut the backs of my hands and lick the blood off. The Frenchman was talking about German Expressionism. He talked about German Expressionist movies I should see. He offered me a cigarette, then took it back before I could accept because he was worried about people seeing his offer. I had already seen Metropolis because of my father. We sat in the converted attic with the wood stove burning and watched movies my father liked. He would leave if I chose the movies, so he chose them. The Frenchman's smile was softest when I forgot everything and wound myself up in whatever I was saying, and he would treat me delicately so the bubble of my excitement wouldn't pop. It was something he did, which nobody who fucked me since has done. So when I lost myself talking about Metropolis, which was one of the movies my dad had chosen, but one I liked, when the stewardess came past us and the Frenchman interrupted me gently to order more whiskey, I stopped talking because the excitement bubble popped. He normally didn't do that. It left embarrassment behind, a bad smell. I want sparkling water and lemon. I ordered it for you, but the carbonation was harsh like sponge pads on my tongue. I didn't keep talking about Metropolis. I was 20 pages into the English translation of Le Rouge et le Noir, and I liked reading it in front of the Frenchman because I could read it without skipping any words or putting it back down or asking him what a word meant. I don't know if he expected me to read that way or liked when I did, but he stopped looking at me and opened his briefcase and took out a plush leather folder with some papers and a yellow legal pad, ruled in blue with a red margin and a thick, shiny pen. He folded the leather cover behind the yellow legal pad and wrote notes in English. He worked and lived in New York and went back to Paris to buy clothes, which might be why he wrote that way. He wrote notes in English, but I didn't know what language the papers were in. They might have been in French, which I couldn't read back then. Behind us, a minor princess was complaining. She was in her 30s or 40s, but I don't remember which because I couldn't tell the difference until I got older. She couldn't find any men interested in dating her because she couldn't marry a commoner, and she couldn't marry a commoner because they're all gold diggers or power hungry. Everyone only interested in her for her family. Being a royal, you know, they all think they can become a king if they marry me. I looked between the seats and she was twisting her ring around her finger. She raised her hand out of sight, I think to run her fingers through her hair, and then dropped her hand back into her other hand to resume twisting the ring. What does your dad do? He was a tenured classic professor at a small liberal arts college in upstate New York. He'd grown away from classics by the time I was born, even though that was his expertise. And now at home, the huge volumes he read and wrote to build his career are on the high shelves of filled bookcases, and dust has settled on the top edge of their pages. When he was a child, he played with dinosaurs. At home, my father was interested in modernism. He seemed to progress slowly through history as he aged. I met the Frenchman in New York. He was at my catwalk debut in the second row when I first walked for a fashion brand. The designer made clothes for adults, but only showed the clothes on children. He never sold the clothes in children's sizes and never advertised the clothes with adults. He was the first to do it that way, which was very exciting in the fashion world. And the Frenchman was so impressed, he promised financial backing for the designer's next venture into shoes and haberdashery. And so the designer invited him to all the wrap parties, and so the Frenchman met me. I wasn't the star of the show, that was Francis. A few months older, taller, with colt legs and a sweet pout to the lip. I dated Francis after we did a spread in Vogue together for a different fashion house, when we were too old for both the designer and the Frenchman. The Frenchman started coming to wrap parties. The designer introduced us at the first party. After the second party, the Frenchman also started coming to shoots with the designer. One shoot, I ran a few steps from the craft services cart to the table set up near it and ate apple slices and fruit dip quickly in makeup, waiting for a call to set from the photographer. My lips were already done, so I drew them away from my teeth and the apple. I drank my Diet Coke through a straw. The Frenchman was in a chair nearby. That's when he invited me to Paris. The designer urged me to go later when we were talking about something else with a sentence that started, by the way. By the way, he said, Paris is lovely this time of year and you should go. My father could afford a nicer house with the money I earned, and I was tutored on set with the other girls when I had to do a photo shoot, so he didn't mind taking me out of school. I wasn't reading the Stendhal anymore. I turned to a page of it, but the material outside, the electric blue, space and atmosphere together like sweet and salt, brackish neon blue, right there outside. It was nothing I could breathe. Lungs designed for the rich gel the planet holds jealously close. I turned to the next page and saw through the paper a crack in the window of the Concorde, spiraling through the glass, then pinwheeling the window out of the plane, the outside sucking me through the window, like being pulled through a straw, and I would, for a short time, feel what this new stuff outside is like on the skin, taste it as I suffocate. Maybe it tastes like wild berry punch. It tastes like blood. Your lungs swell and burst, like a deep water fish brought up to shore. And how do you know? You've never even lived. Your two cells dividing furiously. That's it.
My God, Alice, it was so good. That was it's surgically precise in its writing. It's so cold and so sharp and so vicious, and yet so surgically precise. It's like a fucking vivisection. It's really, really good. And you have so many of these lines that are like, yeah, they're cold in the way trauma is cold, right? They're cold in the way scar tissue is cold, but they are also so sharp, and they communicate so much. Like just a little bit about the French designer who only designs clothes for adults but only models them on children. In that sentence, there's a whole world of depravity and tragedy and ugliness, but the way it's delivered is with this like satirical sharpness to it that communicates so much without saying it, right? And the whole fucking piece is like that. And even if you couldn't finish it in a week, I hope you do finish this. As someone who has tried and failed at NaNoWriMo many times, often like with one, like I'll get one chapter in and I'll be like, why the fuck am I trying to do this? Why would I want to write a novel in a month? You know, yeah, I just hope you follow through and finish this because it is so fucking good.
Thank you. Just very quickly before I sign off, the title of the piece is work in progress. It's Lithopedion, and it's based on the idea of a stone baby. Everybody go Google that. And I'm probably going to end up publishing it myself and painting the cover because I'm a painter. I don't know if you can see all this.
Oh, cool. In the background, those are yours?
Yeah, those are all mine. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone so much for this is the first time I've ever read anything, like, and I'm like still shaking, so thank you for being so kind.
Nobody would have known it. Nobody would have known it. You did a great job with the delivery, and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm also gonna jump in and say Alice is serializing a novel on her Patreon, so go look for that. It's amazing.
Elle, could you put a link to her Patreon, or Alice, could you put a link to your Patreon in the chat? And maybe Rudy can even tweet it out along with the other links.
Yeah, sure. That would be lovely. Thank you.
Cool. So I think we've got Kai or Kay. Kay. Sabrina, any word from Kay? Is Kay with us or not?
Only in spirit, and maybe even not that. I don't know.
So
Right,
Sabrina, so that would bring us to the end of our scheduled readers then.
Yeah.
We've been going for 2 hours now. How do you feel about an open mic? I'm trepidatious for one reason and one reason only. If I thought it would be a half-hour open mic or a 15-minute open mic, I would be like, okay. I'm a little scared though. I've seen multiple people like mention the open mic, and I'm a little scared of opening the floodgates and having this go for another hour. But I also wouldn't want to be like, oh, we're only letting the first 3 or 4 people pass the gate, because that would seem a little cruel to the people who maybe want to read and can't. So I don't know. How are you feeling about it?
No, I say no. Fuck them. Yeah.
How about
Next.
this? How about this? I think this went really well. I think this went fantastic. I don't know how you feel, but I think this went great. I think we should do this again.
Yeah.
I think we should do this again next month. And so if you're hoping to get into the open mic, and that we just don't have time for tonight, and you're a European author who can only make it to this time frame, send me a DM or send Sabrina a DM, and we will sign you up for next month and get you on the docket so you don't have to be scrambling for the open mic. If you are a Misery Loves Company regular, if you're somebody who can make it to our usual readings, we're doing this again next week at the usual 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific time. If you're available, just shoot me a DM, say you want to sign up for Misery Loves Company next week. Does that sound good for everyone?
Yeah. Do you guys, I mean, this was amazing. Do you guys usually hang out now? Is that what happens, evolves into hanging out? Because this is also selfishly why I wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely.
This happen.
So what I will do is we'll wrap up the recording, and then I will leave the Zoom meeting open, and anyone who wants to just hang out, just chat, whatever, you can hang out for as long as you want. Eventually I will leave to go to sleep, but if the party is still going, I'll shift hosting duties to someone else, and this thing will stay up for as long as people want it to. That's usually what we do with Misery Loves Company. I often, with Misery Loves Company, end up leaving relatively early in the evening, but I've been told sometimes this goes till 3 a.m. or something. So anyway, yeah. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Elle. Thank you to everyone who read tonight. This was just a fantastic batch of readings, and it was so fucking awesome to get to see some new blood here, to get to hear from people who I've never heard read before. Luca, you are screen sharing. Do you know that you're screen sharing? Well, I don't want to boot you, Luca. Oh wait, I can do that. Because I think Luca is a Misery Loves Company regular, but it could be a different Luca. Anyway, thank you to everyone who read tonight. This was fantastic. I think we're going to leave it there. I think I'll stop the recording there. As I said, we're going to put this recording up on YouTube on Monday, and it should be available through both Misery Tourism and through Witchcraft Mag. Yep, I'm belaboring this thing. Thank you so much, guys. This has been fucking wonderful.